Yeah, hi. It started, right? Uh,
Yes,
Hello. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for spending your Saturday evening to come to this data science workshop. So, let's get the introduction done so that we can go to the interesting stuff and just do the programming and what you're here for. Let's start with the introduction. So, let me tell who am I. So my name is Rikith Reddy. In case you do not know, I'm just a friendly neighborhood data scientist. I have done my BTech from CSC in Triple IT Guwahati, and ever since I graduated, I've been working at Arista Networks in the data team, where I work for the Wi-Fi division. It mainly operates in the Pune office. So what do I usually do at work? At work, I have two different roles. The first role is actually data science. The data in which what I do is I just play around with data. So we have humongous amount of data which we have collected across our customers. What I do is I just do a deep dive into that data and try to generate some insights. From these insights, we later sit down and brainstorm if we can create new features. Once we build those once we discuss those features, we go ahead and build them. We can start building new models for them. The models can range from as simple statistic models to some graphs, or you can have very complex machine learning models as well. In case you do not get that, the summary of what I do in this part is I just look at data, ask different questions, and try to solve them. And actually, that's what we'll be doing in this whole workshop. We'll be looking at a specific data, we'll be asking different questions about it, and trying to solve it. The second part of my work comes as ML ops. So what this deals with is building production grade data pipelines. So what I do in this is, so we have different forms of data going across our product line. So what we do here is we plumb that data and make sure that the data we have plumbed is of a certain quality. Once we ensure that, we pass them to our models, which we have made in the earlier iteration as a data scientist. And then the work here involves around maintaining those deployed models and ensuring that there are no bugs which are coming up when the customer is looking at them. So in a summary, what I do is I make sure that the data things at Arista work as expected. So that's with the introduction. Coming to what this workshop is. So this workshop is actually a very simple, elementary workshop. This is for people who want to just get started with data science. So why do you need that? First point, you need that because you have data of different types. So a lot of us maintain different forms of data. So we have our financial records, we have some personal information which we record as data, and being able to look at insights into that, look at it and have insights into that is usually very useful. One problem with that is, where do you start? If you go to Google or YouTube and just type data science tutorials, you'll be flooded with humongous amount of information where you don't know where to start and you'll get lost. There's too much information and you don't know exactly where do you touch or what do you start, or how do you just get started with the data. What is the simplest form where you can just get started with whatever it is, or whatever it is available. So the idea of this workshop is to mainly get started. So how do you handle data and how do you get started with it? Who is this workshop for? So I have got this question from a couple of folks asking who is this workshop for? I'm a beginner, can I join? I'm already a professional working here. Is it okay for me to join? So anyone who wants to know something new is welcome to join. The only prerequisite here being that you need to know basics of Python programming language. So compared to a lot of tutorials and workshops or even courses you find online, the one thing that will be different here that you'll be programming alongside me. So it will not be like I'll be giving you a lecture on how do you do data science and we forget about it after this workshop is done. It's not like that. You're going to do a hands-on session where there's a data set where you'll be solving different type of problems alongside me. I've made it relatively easy so that even newcomers can pick up. And I've made it in such a way so that even professionals are already working in this field for some time or already have a decent amount of knowledge can take away some best practices. So these best practices are included from my work at Arista. So we do professional data science here. So I just added in some best practices we follow at work, so that even people who have some exposure to data science can take away something from this. So to get started, so like enough with the introduction, like let's get away from the slides and go like do the actual thing we are all here for. So we'll be using Google Collab for this. Google Collab, in case you do not know, is nothing but a Google Doc which can also run a piece of code. So it is provided by Google to help people work with data science even faster. It provides you resources and the environment needed for you to do different things. So this requires zero configuration. Like you can just load into a URL just like a Google Doc and start working on it. And second part of it is it is easy to share. Suppose you made something of data science and maybe you're facing some issue or you wanted to just share it with your friend. You can just copy paste that URL and give it to someone. So you'll need to go to this URL to get started. You'll be doing this alongside me. Just click on this URL. Arpit, if you can please share this in the chat.
Yeah.
So you'll be seeing a screen similar to this one. Let me just. So you'll be needing to sign into your Google account before you are able to see the screen. As you people do this, so there's one more thing. So in case you get any questions while doing this, so you can just go ahead and so if you see your chat options, you'll be able to see activities here. If you go to Q&A, you will be able to ask questions. Since you cannot turn on your microphone, you can just drop in your questions here, and Arpit will be helping me asking these questions to me time to time, so that your questions are answered. You can just start dropping in your questions here. Okay, so going ahead, I guess most of you have reached the screen. You have come to Collab Research Google.com, and most likely you have logged in with your username, Google user. So there are this screen shows you different things. First one is examples. Examples is where Google by itself tells you how to use Collab. Collab has different features, and how do you extensively use it can be found here. It gives you different set of tutorials which can be helpful for you to go uh, beyond what this workshop is covering. You have recents, which should most likely be empty if you're new to this. You have Google Drive, where you have some already notebooks which are already existing in your Google Drive, and you have GitHub. We'll be using GitHub for now. Just go there and type in Rikith Reddy/DS workshop and press enter. You'll be seeing a notebook here. Arpit, if you can just paste this link as well, paste this text as well.
Yeah.
So once you do this, you'll be able to see a notebook here. Just go ahead and click on it. Go to GitHub, type in this name, and just click on it. So what this is doing is I committed this piece of code already on GitHub. GitHub is a place where you share your code. So you're able to load the code I posted on GitHub into your Google Colab. So this is the interface you'll be getting. And I'll just wait for everyone to just load in. Maybe you can hit raise hands once you are done, so that I know you're completed. Once you're a decent amount, just let me know, Arpit, so that I can just move ahead. Please hit raise hands once you are done, once you have seeing this screen. If you're facing some problem, please do post it in the questions tab as well. Okay. So like, are a decent number of people raise their hands, or?
Yeah, I think we can go on there.
Okay, so going ahead, just look at my screen. So what you'll be seeing here is like you have an interface for your whole Google Colab. We'll go into that later, but first let's do an important thing. So what you just did is loaded something from GitHub into your own Google Colab, but this is not in yours. Like I said that this is easy to share. For it to be shared, it needs to be in your Google Drive. So you need to create a copy. So just do a Control S or click on this copy to Google Drive. When you do a Control S, it will be saying you that you cannot save changes to this notebook because you do not have permission. To make these changes, you'll need to make a copy. So you'll need to do just that. Just do a save a copy in a G Drive. So what this is doing, it's making a copy of the same notebook in your Google Drive, and you'll be able to go to another screen where you'll have the edit access. So you'll come back to this screen. It also say last saved at some number, and that should be the hint that it has created a copy. I also renamed this notebook from copy of notebook to notebook, just to keep it. I hope everyone has got the screen, and maybe they have got to this point where you see this. So I just introduced you what Google Colab is. So if you have earlier worked with Google Docs, Google Sheets, or something similar, this is relatively same. Like it's similar to those two tools which Google provides. The only difference being that you can also code here. So coming to the first feature, you can comment and share. As I said, you can share it with your peers. So let's say I share it with Arpit, who is the host. He'll be able to comment on this. So he can open a comment panel. He can say add a comment, and he can say change this. So when you are making changes alongside your friend, you are collaborating with your friend. It's called Google Collab. You collaborate with people. They can add in comments. You can go back and change. So that's one very useful feature as you keep working with different type of people. You can also share it with people. So similar to Google Docs, you can just click on share and you can choose whom to share with. You can also create a public link so that anyone can come here and just like go ahead with this. Second interesting feature of Google Colab is free resources. So this is hosted on cloud. So nothing is there installed on your machine. So generally, if you follow any tutorial, what you'll be usually seeing is that download this package, set this up, do this before the workshop. You don't need anything. All you need is to just go to this URL, create a new notebook, and you'll get free resources. So how do you get free resources? So if you look at this whole screen, you'll see something called as connect. When you click on connect, it'll say it's allocating, then connecting, and then it'll say connected after a while. So what this is doing is when you say connected, you're asking Google to allocate you some resources with which you'll be able to work. And once you do that, you'll be able to see that you have been allocated some RAM, some disk space with which you can work with. So these are the free resources Google is giving you. So what you do is once you click on the connect, it creates a container for you and allocates certain resources which you have access to. That's what's happening in the background. And going ahead, so let's look at more features which your Google Colab is giving you. The first one is where you have this files option. In this files option, what you can do is click on files, and you'll be able to see your local storage. So when you're working with anything, you'll need a file system. Maybe to save something or load something, you'll need a file system. And as you see here, you have been allocated some disk space, which is being used here. So there's some sample data which Google gives you just to play around. We're not going to use that, but you can always upload files. So there's a upload file option where you can just go ahead and upload file to a storage. This is a refresh, and you can also mount your Google Drive. When you press on this, it'll give you a piece of code. When you press on this, it'll give you a piece of code to connect your Google Drive. So I'm just saying no thanks because we are not doing that as well. So it's just giving me a piece of code which will help me connect to Google Drive. It just wrote the code for me, if you can see this. Let's not do that right now. So you are able to mount your Google Drive. So once you mount your Google Drive, you can access any file in your Google Drive. Say your data is stored in your Google Drive, you can just load it from there and start using it. And there are other things as well. There's the variable explorer where you can see what variables are there in your system. There's something called as code snippets where you can have some pre-written code snippets for you, which can just do some common functionalities. There's a search and replace option. And there's the table of contents. This is similar to a Google Doc where you can see what's there in this whole Google Doc, whole Collab notebook. Going back, I said that the most interesting feature of Google Colab is text and code in the same place. So what is this? So what do I mean by text and code in the same place? So let's come to this. There are two different blocks when you're working with Google Colab. You can see them over here, plus code plus text. So you can also try pressing them when you do a add text. You'll be able to like write some lines, and that will be shown here. Like it's as simple as that. And when you press code, you can just write code. I'll get to that. So this is how a text cell looks. I can just double click it and see what's written there. So there is some specific syntax which this uses, that is double hash, text quotes, double star, and some text, and there are three quotes Python written there, and there's some information. So what this is it's a form of markdown language. So if you had earlier seen that Collab tutorial, there was a place where you could see how to write markdown in Collab. So if you go to that tutorial, you'll be able to know details of what this is and how exactly these things work. But for now, ability to know that you can write text here is enough. The more interesting part of this is writing code. So this is what a code cell looks like. So this is a code cell. So you can run it alongside me. You have the same notebook open with you. Just press on run. And once you press on run, you'll be able to see this is similar to how you're running a Python script. So if you wrote a Python script which said a equal to 1 and print a, it will be doing the same thing. And then you run the Python script, it will be doing the same thing. What is happening here is this is an interactive Python shell where you have pieces called as cells. Each cell is capable of executing whatever is written in that. So it is like an individual Python file. So, and one more important thing about this whole thing is that prints are not needed. So in most of the cases, you do not actually need to print. So if you just say one, you will be able to print it. Or if you just say like 1 plus 1, you'll be able to see 2. This is like simple Python code which you're doing. So this is almost similar as this one, like print 1 plus 1. Or say if you're just starting out, print hello world. So you can go ahead and maybe write some Python code below. So like feel free to do whatever operations you have. Uh, Feel free to do whatever operations you want to do. Just try out basic Python. So just see whatever you can do, multiplication, addition, subtraction, just see how the prints go on here, and like maybe create a new cell and just run it. So as you people keep doing that, anyone has any questions or like is stuck, you can just ask in the questions tab where Arpit can just tell me what's
Okay,
wait.
you can go ahead. Yeah, no questions there.
Okay. So I'm assuming that every one of you have like I have been able to use this feature where you can run cells. So if you have run this cell, so let's say you had run this cell a equal to 1 and b equal to 1 and b equal to 2 and just print b. So or else just this should also work. So one important thing is this context being carried. So what I mean by context is I declared a equal to 1 in this cell. Let's say I'm creating a new cell and I say print a, that works. This is because Collab is remembering everything. So if you had remembered this variable section, if you click on it, you'll be able to go and see what are the current variables in my environment and what are the values of those environment. Let's say a equal to 1 and b is equals to and the value of b is 2. So you'll be able to see that. So one good practice. So when you're working professionally, you're going to write these notebooks as well. So for people who want to pursue this professionally or already doing this professionally, one thing you need to remember is that you can easily get bad with this thing which Collab provides you with. So let's say I declare b equal to 2. I go up, like I just go ahead and go to some cell on the top and do a print b. This works. This works because B is currently there in my environment. However, when you're working professionally, just don't do this. What happens is when say I said you can share your notebooks with anyone, you can share it with anyone, and when they share it, they don't have your runtime nor they have your variables. So what the state they'll be ending up seeing your notebook is this, where they'll like you'll be losing all, like this is just losing all my local variables. So my local variables are empty, and let's say I shared this notebook with one of you, and you just hit run on this. You just went ahead and hit run on this. It'll throw an error. This is not pleasant. So when you're sharing with someone and you're just getting an error when you're someone is trying to execute whatever you have shared, this is not a good impression you create. So the best practice is always is before you just complete your notebook or maybe push it for review or just show it to someone, just go to runtime and do a like restart and run all. And make sure that you're not getting any errors when you're just posting it to someone. So Collab has this feature where like it carries context of variables from one cell to another. That is helpful, but it can also become chaotic easily. So just remember that you do not do that. Okay, going ahead. So that's Python and Collab for you. What we are here for is data science, and for data science we need data. So that's the term. So
Rikith, one question.
yes.
So, is C++ supported in Google Colab?
Uh, the answer to that is a direct no, but you can configure it to run your C code. That's what I'll say. Okay. So by default, it comes with Python. So let's stick to Python for this. But you can always install things. So it gives you an option to install different things. So if you are familiar with how Linux commands work, you can just go ahead and install different things and run it. That's a little advanced topic. Let's not go there. We can take this up offline if you want. So for data and Python, so how do you get your data to Python? So the question is, what is data? Where is data? And who is data maybe? So data is of all shapes and forms. You can have different type of spreadsheets. Maybe you're maintaining your financial records there. Maybe you have some APIs. Say there's a weather API which gives the current weather of your location. You can get it from there. Maybe you have some JSON files which your company has generated for you in the past and they are lying around somewhere. Maybe you have CSV files or YAML files, or maybe you just have an SQL database where all your data is stored. So you can have data of different forms. You can have it even on a physical copy. We can always transfer that into a spreadsheet or something else so that you can have data which you can work with Python. So this is the form of data you have. This is common knowledge where everyone has some sort of data lying around in some form or shape. How do I get this data to Python? So that's what we need to do, right? You need to get your data to Python before you start doing any analysis or data science over it. So we'll be using pandas. Like these cute pandas will be helping us convert your data to code and then perform operations. So I hope it was like that, but it's not. Pandas is not these cute pandas, but it's a library. If you go and look at the official definition, like if you just search it up online, you'll get this definition where it says that pandas is a fast, powerful, flexible, and easy to use open source data analysis and manipulation tool, which is built on top of Python programming language. In layman's terms, what it's saying is it gives you a Python object where you can perform different things you can do with your Excel spreadsheet as well. So we'll go to the code examples where so I have been so after a lot of thought on what data we'll be using for this workshop. I remember that I visited one of the like PyData conference where people were just sitting there and coding. It was called Code and Coffee 2, where the host, his name was Mayank Mishra, he created this data. So this is data of IPL, Indian Premier League, where it has some data of each matches. So what he did was he queried some ClickBuzz or ClickInfo site. He got all that data in JSON format and converted that into a format called as CSV. So that is the data you have here. You can access this if you click on the URL I provided. You can also get details about Mayank if you want to know about it. So like this is the data we'll be operating. So what this has, it has match information of different matches which have been in IPL. So what do you do? So what does Panda do for you? So I thought the best way to explain what Pandas does for you is by example, instead of giving you textbook definitions or my own definitions. You can just see what Pandas is doing for you, and you'll be able to get an intuitive idea of what's happening there. So there are three statements here. First statement is import Pandas as PD. It's a simple import statement where you're getting a library and loading it. Then you have df equals to pd.read csv, where you're trying to read a csv file. And what this is doing is it's pointing to the same URL which I have given above. This URL is pointing to my CSV dataset, and it's saying df. Df means print. It's equivalent to print. So so if you start looking at this, what you'll see is like you have this rows and columns as your data. So so as I was saying, what Pandas does in very simple terms is it converts all your data to Excel or spreadsheet format. So that's what it's doing. So if you have worked with Excel or spreadsheet, you can see that you have different data in forms of rows and columns. So that's what your whole data got converted into. I'll go into more details of what this is, but just try to get an intuitive feeling of what this is. Maybe just go and run your cell or run your DF cell and just get this output where you can see different forms, different things there. So as you can see, there are different columns. Say maybe which city was a match played in, what was the date for the match, was DL rule applied, that is Duckworth rule, I guess. I don't know, like I'm not so sure about that one. Was it an eliminator? What is the match ID? What is the number of overs? What are the who was the player of the match? What was the result? And that different forms of things. Maybe you can just inspect it after you get this out. Okay, so what happened here? So like this was very on top, that what was happening right here, that you imported some library and like I told you to use some function. So any tutorial would just say just read CSV and go ahead with whatever is coming out, and they just teach you whatever is there. But let's not do that. Let's see what exactly Pandas was. So Python has this help function. So whenever you're confused with Python or you're not sure what's going on, there's a function called as help, and you can just do help PD maybe. So PD is what you imported, right? Help PD. When you do that, you'll be able to see some text. This text is help on package for Pandas. It says there, like it's a help function which is giving you help on Pandas. So it's giving you a definition of what Pandas is. That's what I just explained. It is also telling you about different features what your Pandas is providing. It easily handles missing data, floating points. It's size mutable, where you can insert different columns or rows. Like there are different properties as you go along your journey in data science. If you want to pursue after this workshop, you'll be getting into each of these one by one, and they are really important. It also tells different type of sub packages which Pandas provides, which will be helpful for you. So it's always good to read what you're doing instead of just following the tutorial, and getting a brief idea, or like even reading a single line here will help you understand what it is. So what I did here was read CSV. So let's just go ahead and look at what read CSV is. Like, why did I use read CSV? So if you look at that definition, if you just do a help pd.read csv, it's giving you help on that function called read csv. So it's coming from the Pandas IO module, and it has a specific syntax. It has different parameters it takes, maybe file path and buffer, a delimiter, a header, and different sort of things. So for our use case, what's important is this file path. What it is saying is it will take any file path. So if my file was on this file system, so you could add files locally as well. So there were some sample files. I could just point the file path to this files, and Pandas would be able to read it. Or it can be a URL string, which I just used. This is what you call a URL string, which is just pointing to the location of that particular data file. So that's what we used. Let's go a step ahead and see what another variable is. This is just for understanding, so that next time when you do things, it's easier for you to know what things are. It says separator. Separator is a delimiter which you use to load. So it says default is comma. So the meaning of that is this file is separated, the data is separated using commas. So if you even have a look at it, you can see different type of commas. This is called comma separated value. Sometimes people use space or tab or something else, like depending on their data. You can just change this variable to just load whatever different file you have. So it's always good to read, and you can find a better version of this in Pandas documentation. So this is important because if you want to learn more about Pandas, this is the place you'll go, like besides the tutorials and everything. So I use read CSV. Just go to Pandas official documentation. Just do a read CSV, and you'll be able to see the same thing. Why going to documentation is important is, say I said data is of different formats. So you can have Excel files, you can have JSON files, you can have different sort of files. And this shows you how to read different files. So if you just look on the left, you can see read from a pickle file, read from a data table, read from Excel file. So even if you have a look at this, you'll know what Pandas offers for you. This sort of information is not readily available in any sort of tutorial. No one is going to make a tutorial to how to read just pickle files. So this is some information which you can get by hand just by just having a glance key what is your Panda support. And that's what we did. We just used the read CSV function and we got what we want. Earlier I said you that don't use print. You can just try out printing this data frame here, and why you don't need to use print is will be relevant for you. When you do a print df, you'll be seeing this very weird output where the print function cannot understand what's going on. So you just use df. So before we go ahead with some Pandas functions, which are there right below, I would like to answer another question. So let's say you are going through Pandas documentation and you do not find something you are looking for. Let's say you wanted to load something from a Google spreadsheet. You had a Google spreadsheet, say I have Google spreadsheet, and I wanted to load load my data from that. So let's say I had some dummy data in my Google spreadsheet. It has some dummy values. So this is common, like most of you should be maintaining some data in some form of the other. And let's say you had it in a Google spreadsheet, and this workshop did not cover for you how to create, how to load your data from a spreadsheet. What you usually do is just Google it. So that's what most of us in the IT industry are doing these days. Just go and Google it. Just go and type how do you load how do you load data from Google Sheets to Collab. Just pick the Stack Overflow page. That's where we commonly find answers. In case you're not finding it, just go ahead and ask it yourself. There are two answers. Someone wants to do the same thing we are doing, load data from a Google Sheet. The first answer points to a documentation, which is a huge length of text saying elaborately how do you work with Google Sheets and your Google account. This is from Google itself. This is the official documentation. Let's say you don't want to read this. Like you just want to go ahead and just work. You don't want the details, unnecessary details. There's another answer. Maybe you just see this. It's doing some install. It's importing a library, and it's doing some authentication, and it's loading your CSV file, and you're getting a Pandas data frame in the end. So maybe you just want to try this out. So I'm telling this because I want to show another feature of Google Collab. So go back to, or just copy that piece of code, go back to your Google Collab, and so in insert, and you'll see something called as scratch code cell. So this is a very nice functionality of Google Collab, which helps you create a scratch code cell. So what this helps you do is it helps you run code which you just want to scratch or just test it out, like these small pieces of code which you want to test, which is not relevant to what you're doing, maybe exactly not relevant to what you're doing. You just don't want it to be in your main code. So this scratch cell will be having access to variables. I defined A and B earlier. Let me just print A. So it will have access to my variable A. It will print A for me. But what we want to do is run this piece of code. I just copied and pasted this piece of code. I'll just blindly run it. Like I have a high level idea of what it's doing. I'll just blindly run it. It'll ask for authentication because it's from Google. It'll just ask me to authorize this transaction. So I go to auth, I just click on this link, I go to my Google account, just click on it. It's asking me permission. I'll just allow it. It gave me a code. I'll need to just copy it and paste it, right? Verification code. It threw me an error. So I had a query. I went online, searched for it. They gave some code which I thought will work. It did not work. This is a place where most of the people stop, like they don't understand what's going on. But if you just have a look, what it just says spreadsheet not found. And if you see what you wrote, it says that this load this file for me, but my file name was something else. It's called data dummy data. I'll just go there and that should start working. So if you're ever stuck, just try going to Stack Overflow. That's what I wanted to say here, not exactly understand what's going on here. If you're ever stuck, go to Stack Overflow. That's the best place you'll get answers to most of your queries. So coming back to this example, let's just go ahead and just run this cell again, just to get back into the context of this workshop. So now you have this data frame loaded for you. Let's do some small operations on this. So when you look at it, it says that you have 746 rows and 20 columns. So that is a huge amount of information. Even Pandas is not able to fit that in your whole screen. So let's say you wanted to just look at certain set of rows. You want to just look at the first one row. You can do a function called as df.head. If you go scroll down, head and tail functions, if you go there, you can see this piece of code and you can just maybe run it. It says df.head of one. What it's doing is it's getting the first one row for you. You can just change this as a parameter. So you can just say, I want first 10 rows, and it'll be giving you the first 10 rows. So similarly, since you have head, the opposite of head is tail. So you have tail function, which will be giving you what's in the end. So what are the last 3 rows? What are the last 5 rows? You can just change this. So this is just as simple as df dot and call this function, just head or tail and just call them. So I would want you to do this yourself. Just go ahead, go to your df, maybe try to print the first 0 rows. Like there are a couple of questions here. Just try to print the couple of like first 0 rows, first last 747 rows, and only third, fourth, and fifth row. The last one is a bit hard, but you can just try to use head and tail functions to do that. Maybe you can wait for 1 or 2 minutes as you people try along. Please do try along. Go back to your Collab notebook and try to get the first 0 rows. See what the output is. Try to get the last 747 rows, and maybe try to get 345 3, 4, and 5 rows. This is a bit difficult. The last one is a bit difficult. So please use this head and tail functions. Wait for a minute. So how do you do this? So it's asking me to get the first 0 rows. So I said you that the head function gets you the first n rows. Like it's just taking a different number and it's giving you those many amount of rows. So it is as simple as df.head 0. But the output is something which was more interesting. That's why I added you to do that. So when you say head of 0, it's giving you 0 rows. However, you need to also note that it's giving you the column names. It's giving you an empty structure, but it has like nothing there. But it is still a pandas data frame, so it has the column names for you. So that's what was important about this one, that if you are calling 0 rows, you're still getting a pandas object, which is like a spreadsheet. It's like an empty spreadsheet right now. So when you do last 747 rows, so that is df dot tail of 747. So the data frame has just 746 rows. That's what I mentioned here. That's what you could just go and infer in the above where you run it. When you run this, what do you expect? So there are 746 rows, and you're passing that give me last 747 rows. So ideally you would think this will fail, but pandas does not fail this. What it'll do is it'll just give you the 746 rows which you have. You can do a similar thing with head as well. It'll just give you everything. Like if you're just exceeding the limit than what's present, if I just say 10,000, still give me whatever is present. It will not throw an error. Yeah, just remember this. So it is not necessary that each time you give something, it will just give you the exact number. Even if it's less, it will give you an output, but it will just tell you how many rows per less is there. Okay, the next one is slightly complicated. So I just added this so that it will be interesting for people who are already aware of these data science tools. So let's tackle this bit by bit. So it's asking you to get 3, 4, and 5. So let's just break this problem into two problems. Just get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And from that, I can get the last three rows. So in case I want to get the first 5 rows, the simple thing I would do is df dot head of 5. That will be giving you my your first 5 rows. Just store them into variables. Since you're using pandas, you can Python, you can always store them into a variable. So now this is also a data frame object. So you can do different operations even on this. So you can just see how your temp looks. Your temp looks like this. Your temp is also a data frame object right now. Now you can run a tail operation on it. Tail of say 2. He would be giving you what you want. The rows 3, 4, and 5. So indexing starts from 0. So 0 is 1. So 4 is 5. So that is third, fourth, and fifth rows of your whole data frame. So this is how you do it. So the important thing you remember from this exercise is that whatever operations you're performing in pandas, it's returning your pandas data frame again. So whatever you get back, you can start applying whatever is relevant to pandas on it again. So you applied head on something, you got back a pandas object, and again you applied something relevant to pandas there, that is tail, and then you did whatever you wanted to do, that is get third, fourth, and fifth rows in your whole data frame. So what's a good practice? So even this must be so for advanced users, this must be common knowledge, but what is a good practice? So generally, if you go ahead and see any of those tutorials online or different types of workshops, most likely 99% of the people just do this. Like I have seen most of the people just do this. So if they wanted say 71st and 71st and 72nd row, they do this, like just go 100 of head and then take 30, uh, then do this. Like there are some operations which are doing like head, then tail, then again head, then you're storing it in a variable each time. So this is how you would see any notebook online. If you go on GitHub or Kaggle is a place where you can find such notebooks. You'll see most likely people doing this. But when you're working professionally, this is not something you do. It's not a good practice that you do this. So because each time you're overriding a variable and it's always called the same, and you can always do this, right? So pandas has this feature, and people, as you go along, you'll be most likely using this. So you can have this in two different places where you define tdf somewhere, and in some other cell you're trying to run tdf.head of. So you can easily start losing track of what you did as you work along, as your code gets complex, or your what you're trying to do becomes more and more complicated. At the end of this workshop, you'll see how complicated things can get when you want different things from pandas. So what is the best practice here? Let's just don't do this. Like don't write, like don't start declaring multiple variables. Just just write a code in this way. I'll start explaining what this is. So let's just comment this. Like let's start very simple. When you're saying df, you're able to access your data frame. Then when you say df.head, you're able to look at your first 100 things of your data frame. So from this, what we were doing was tdf equals to this and tdf dot tail of 50. This is what we were doing right earlier. So the problem, so what you can note here is this is also a pandas object, and what you can simply do is this. You can just start chaining things there. And then again, you can like this runs the same as expected, and then you do this. And your code runs as expected. Like this is what you wanted to do about there. So if you just add parentheses, so if you add parentheses, Python lets you write things in multiple lines. And this is what you do. You write df, And in first line you write the first operation you're doing, the second operation, and the third operation. So this is like a standard when you're working professionally. Try to use this. It's called chaining, and this is very helpful because it's one very easy to debug. So if you wanted to just see what half of this does, just comment these lines, run your code, it runs as expected. If you wanted to just see what the first two operations do, just run it and you can just see the output of what's happening there. So this starts becoming very useful as a professional tool. It looks very simple, but it has a lot of impact. Second thing, when you're passing your code on somewhere. So let's say I'm looking at this cell, like only a part of this cell. The above part was maybe written somewhere else. I'm looking at this. There's some TDF, and I'm just getting a head of 2 out of that. So this doesn't make much sense. I do not know where this thing started and what happened in between. But when you're looking at this, this was my original data. I took 100 head, then I took 150 tail, then I took a two head. So this is not something readily available online. People don't mention this, but this is a good practice. And I would suggest you to, since if you're starting your Python journey with Pandas today, I would suggest you to start doing this right from the first day. Like this is a good practice, and just stick to it. Now let's just go ahead. So let's do some basic exploration. Just selecting some rows and columns is not that interesting because you can do a lot more with data. Let's say you want to do a data like some simple data exploration. Pandas is built for that, so it gives you this function called as describe. Just run this cell. So you'll be able to see an output. So what this output is I'll just explain it one by one. So it has too many things. Let's just reduce some things for that. Let's just take into account count, then minimum and maximum. Just ignore the rest of the things which is throwing at you. So what it is saying is there's a column called ID, and the count for that is 746. So if you remember, 746 is the number of rows in your data. So what this is saying is there are 746 rows of my count, but that doesn't make much sense. But if you just come here, you see that there are less number of rows with win by runs. Let's go back and check why this is the case. Like let's just go back to this data frame and see win by runs and win by wickets. So if you see at these two columns, you'll be seeing that win by runs is some value and win by wicket is nan. Nan means that data entry is not present. There's no data entry. This is obvious because what this is referring to is how did this particular winner, how did Sunrisers Hyderabad win this particular match? Did it win by runs? So if it was batting first, they'll be winning by runs. If it was fielding first, they'll be winning by wickets. Both cannot be possible at the same time. So that's what it says. And like that's why the count here is less, because there's no entry present. So that's what your count is giving. It's giving you number of entries where it is not empty. Then you have your minimum. Minimum is the minimum number of minimum value taken by that particular entry. So ID is not relevant. ID is just an identifier. Let's not go there. Overs, you have overs. The minimum value of overs is 20. You also have a maximum. The maximum of your rows is also 20. So what does this mean? Does this mean that all matches which are there in this data frame, that is from 2000, so from 2008 to 2019, all the matches had 20 overs each? No, right? Some matches end early, some matches end in 5 or 6 overs as well, in like weird cases. So what this is telling, I just went and re-verified. I asked a question here, why is everything 20 here? So the answer to that turns out to be that this is just telling the format of cricket. It's not overs exactly, it's format. It's format 2020 format. That's why only 20 overs. So like when you do it, so I got all this information just by running a describe function. So that's how powerful Pandas is. You just run a describe function and you're able to see that there are some missing values. What is the minimum of something, maximum of something, is something just same, or like if in case of overs is something same. So now let's get to more interesting things. So let's see win by wickets. The min of this is 1. The max of this is 10. This is expected, right? When you are playing cricket, you either win by 1 run or 1 wicket or 10 wickets. You cannot win by 0 wickets. That's not possible. You cannot win by more than 10 wickets because 10 is the maximum number of wickets you have. So that validates this as well. And similarly, you can see for runs, there are two different values. 146 is the highest number of runs between seasons 2008 to 2009. That's what I can info from here. So if you are a number geek of cricket and you wanted to know what is the highest number of runs by which a team won between seasons 2008 to 2019 of IPL, 146 is your answer. So that's how interesting this is. Like you can answer questions which you usually have. So if you're a number geek for going like these IPL matches or how many runs Virat Kohli scored, so this is a place where you by yourself can get these numbers. Okay, let's do something more interesting. Let's create a new code cell. And here there are 336 records where the team batting first won. And there are 398 records where team batting second won. Let's just add them up. So team batting first and team batting second. This is the number of records for them. So you get a number. So you're just getting some number called as 734. But you see that the total number of matches is 746. These don't add up, right? This plus this should be equal to this. So there's something missing here. So there's something which is weird, that there are 12, exactly 12 matches which are missing right here. What are those 12 matches? You just go back. Let's go back and check it. So since you're working with data, you ask questions. So that's what you usually do. That's the best way to learn data science. Even if you are not familiar with Python, Pandas or anything, only by asking questions you can learn a lot about data. So that's what we are doing. We are asking why doesn't these both add up to this, which is the total number of rows. Let's just take here. So in Pandas, you can access a single column by its name with dot operator. So if I said df dot result, it will be giving me my column of df dot result. So why am I looking at results? So there was this column called df dot result when I was looking at this data frame, and I thought it was mostly nan. So whatever result I just saw, it is mostly nan. I wanted to verify if this was just some rubbish entry which came into my data, or was this something really important. So I just filtered out that data. So you can just say df dot your result and you'll get all nans. So it's of size 46. It looks like everything is empty. That is, there's no entry for this. However, this is not full. Like there are 746 rows, and you're just looking at 10, like the first 5 and the last 5 right here, which is not the complete picture. There's a function called unique. Unique gives you all the unique values taken up by that particular row. So we just pass it. So this is how you usually write. If you want to follow the best practice, this is how you should be writing it. So it is giving me different elements. So what are the different values taken by this result column? So the first 5 and last 5 rows were just telling me it is taking nan, but it was not the case. It's also taking no result and tie. So we not take that into account. So what we were talking about here was the team playing first innings winning or team playing second innings winning. There are also cases where the match is draw or the match just has no result. So say a rain stop play. So that is the case. So you want to go out and test if that's true. Just run this one below. So value.counts is another method which is counting how many times these two entries occurred. So how many times did no result occur? How many times did tie occur? So there were 8 ties between seasons 2008 2019. That's what this is saying. And there were 4 no results between seasons 2008 to 2019. And if you add these both up, 8 plus 4 is 12. And that's how many matches you are missing from this whole thing. So this is the general workflow when you're working with any type of data. You ask questions. The more questions you ask, the better you get. Look at these, like just add these up, just see that it's not matching with this. What happened to it? Just try to solve it using the skills you have. So that is the general idea how you work with any data science project, any type of data you are thrown at. So it's now your turn. Maybe go ahead and try to solve these set of questions. There are a couple of them. So first one is simple, like try to find the unique values of toss decision. Like you can just refer to the functions I used above. You should be having access to them. Just try to solve this. Maybe we can wait for 5 minutes and I'll just show you how to do it. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can post them. Okay, maybe I'll just give out those answers. So the first question is how many unique values are there for this column called as toss decision? So if you go back and try to look at your data frame, you need to always keep doing this to know what columns you are talking about. It says that toss decision can take a bat and ball. Like if you just look at it, you'll be able to see it takes bat and field. So what was the decision the toss winning team took? So if you want to do that, what you'll be needing to do is df dot toss decision dot unique. So the way you would have to have done that is by looking at this example where I showed how do you take the unique values for result. So like once you perform this unique operator there, then you'll be getting it. Let's just make this good code by I'm doing this because just to make sure that everyone is following this. Like it's good to learn a good practice when you start off. It gets difficult as you like go by to change what you have already learned. So the second question looks is what does the value count of toss decision look like? Do those values add up to 746? What can you conclude from that? So what I mean by that is, so if you look at the output of df.result.value counts, we just add up to 12. That means there were some other matches where you were not able to see what happened. So there were nan entries. So if you did a drop na equal to true here or false here, it'll also be giving you nan. So it will be telling you like these add up to the total number of matches because some entries were empty. I wanted you to do the same thing with toss decision. So the only thing you'll do is just copy this, paste it here, and just replace unique with value counts. So there are two entries. You would have to manually add them, but I'll choose to use sum operator, which will just add those up for me. So Pandas also gives you these functionalities like sum, max, and min, which can help you do that. You could have even manually just added it yourself by yourself. I'm using sum operator here. So it's saying 746. So what do you mean by this? I wanted you to come up with a conclusion of if it is adding to 746. Your tie or no result doesn't add to 746 because like most of them were not there. So what this is telling you is that even if the match was not conducted, or if the match was of no result, the toss had been done. So even if rain had stopped play or something happened due to which these entries were there, if there was no result for 4 matches, all those 4 matches had coin toss done. There was a coin toss, that's why it adds up to 746. The teams chose either bat or field, but they did not end up playing the match. That's what you had to conclude from here. So this is interesting set of information which you can just come up with looking at things. So this is not some information I would have known either by Googling or asking Harsha Bogle maybe. So that's interesting. So the next one is a little more complicated. You have to use what you learned earlier and also match it with this one. So just let's break down this problem into multiple parts as we did earlier. So let's just start off with the syntax. Say you have df. You want to get the first 5 to 100 rows. So that would be breaking down into the same way you did for head and tail problem for the earlier one. Let's get the first 100 rows. So we are getting the first 100 rows, and I think it will be tail of 95, last 95 rows. So that will be giving you my 5 to 96, I guess. Yeah. So this will be giving me my row number 5 to 100. So that's what you got. So it's okay if the numbers are not exact but the idea was to make sure that you solve the problem this way. So the next thing I'm asking you to do is do a describe. And once you do a describe, like you can just, so this is a pandas data frame, and describe function also works for this. And so you got this describe data frame, you solve the first part of the question. Now you go ahead and solve the second part, which is asking you how many matches have been there where the first innings batters won. So if you're doing a first innings batting, you win by runs. So all you had to do was go and check this particular field where it is saying win by runs. So there are 45 matches which happened where the first innings batters won. So this was the solution to the problem, and like 45 was your answer. That's how you had to look at the data and bring it. So the next question is get rows number 50 to 200 using head and tail. It is similar to what we just did. So this will be just 200 and 50, right? 151 maybe. And performer describe. Okay. Okay. This is that describe. What is the value count of results? So I wanted you to do this on the same data frame. So you did this value counts here, right? You are counting how many matches were tie or not. That was the same thing which was required here. So the only way you could do that is like first do your describe operator and then make a new code cell. And instead of describe, you do a value, or you select your field which you want. What was that field? Result. And you do a value.counts. So these are slightly complex. So if you could see, each of these are slightly more difficult than the previous. So if you're not able to solve this on the first go, it's okay. So it was meant to be difficult. So like the whole idea was everyone who has joined, even people who have experience, need to have something going on. So that was the reason I added some tough questions here. But you still get the point on how to get this. Once you see the solution, it's easy and intuitive to understand. So I'm just doing a head, then a tail, then I'm choosing a column, then I'm doing a value counts. So when you write it in this syntax, it becomes easier for you to understand and even explain to different people when you're doing this. So I think it's 4:11. We are a bit back on schedule. Maybe we would. Okay, maybe just complete selection operators and we can take a break. So I'll just do a quick refresher on what Python lists are. So Python has this operator called list. Yeah, we are going back to the basics of what Python is. So in case you had a list, so we declared a list like this. L has values 0 to 10. And you can do filtering. You can like get index by slicing a Python list. So how you do that? You mention the first index and the last index plus one. That's the syntax. So if you wanted to get the second, so if you wanted to get from 1 to 3, this is what you would write. So that is index plus 1. What is the start index? 0, 1. The 1 is my start index. What is my last index plus 1? So 3 was my last index, plus 1 was 4. That's what we wrote. And in case you wanted to get everything from 5, so if you run this, you're getting all. Like, so when you're not mentioning any particular number in your slice, what you get is everything. You're not mentioning anything specific. If you had mentioned like 3, you would have started from 3. If you're not mentioning anything, it says that take everything. So it says that take from 0 to 4. And if you are doing this, like if you want everything till the end, you do this 6 to nothing. You don't mention any number there. If you had mentioned, it will just clip till whatever output was there. So this is a refresher to Python list. There's a small exercise here I wanted to do, but I think we are running over time. So let's just skip this. So what I'll just give you the solutions of what this exercise was trying to do, or maybe during the break you can try this. There's a break, a small break which is scheduled. Maybe during the break you can try this. So this is a refresher to your Python indexing on how do you get things with your Python index slicing. So This is the core concepts of it. You can give a start index and an end index, and you can get a specific range. If you don't specify either the start or end index, it just gives you everything. There's one more concept where if you just give L of colon, that is no starter index or no end index, you will be getting everything. I think that was one of the questions here. Get all elements, but you use slicing. So you had to do this. You get everything. So these concepts are required because Pandas applies same. It tries to stick to the Python syntax and gives you how to select entries from your whole Pandas data frame. So this was a single single level problem, one dimensional problem where you had a list, like you're just slicing in a list. But when you're dealing with the Pandas data frame, you have rows and columns as well. So let me just print it out here and stop scrolling. So if you're looking at So if you're looking at a pandas data frame, you'll have rows and columns. So it is a two-dimensional data, in contrast to your list, which was one-dimensional data. So your slicing would work same here, but there's a small difference. So that's what I'm going to discuss. So back in pandas, what you're going to use for slicing is something called as iloc. And iloc, what you can do is specify something like this. So your iloc is nothing but rows, comma, columns. So your iloc has the syntax. It takes in rows as a first entry, then separated by a comma, then your columns as your second entry. So in case you wanted fourth row, fourth and fifth row with 2 to 8 column, you would do this. So this is how it would look. So to make it better for you to understand, since we skipped that exercise, let me just spend a little more time here. So if you just wanted one row, so let's say I wanted to say 0 to 1, just my first row and first two columns, I would do this 0 to 2. This is saying that I want first row and first two columns. You can go back and verify this. The first row and first two columns is this particular data, that is Mumbai and 2010 and this one, which is the same thing you're getting. You can vary these as you go along, like just how like whatever rows you want. This is exactly Python slicing with lists. So that's what you'll be doing here. Just slice these indexes, and when you don't mention a number, similar to how it was picking earlier, it will pick all the rows. So from ninth row to all the rows, that's what it's saying. And if you wanted all columns, you would say just column. So it's similar to what I showed here. Like when you do a just column, it selects everything. So I'm just saying I just want ninth row to all rows starting from ninth and all columns. So that's what this would be. So that is your iloc. So it requires some knowledge of your Python list. Sorry, we had to skip that small exercise, but just try this out. So there's one more example where if you wanted specific rows, say you just wanted rows number 4, 6, and 7 and all columns, you can just manually provide them as a list. So if you go back to the syntax, there's iloc rows and columns. So it'll be iloc. So the rows you want is provided as a list, that is 4, 6, and 7 and all columns. Once you do that, you'll be able to see like 4, 6, and 7 index. And in case you wanted to have a filter on this as well, you can provide a list for columns as well. Just give me 0 and 1. That should be giving me my city and date. Okay. So maybe you can just try this exercise out. We can spend a little more time here because this is more important than that list slicing which we skipped. So just keep looking at the syntax which I provided above, where iloc takes in rows and columns, and this rows and columns gives you slicing. So you can slice it in different ways, different forms. You can just play around with it first to get an idea, and then you can move ahead and solve these problems which you have. Okay, so let's do one thing. So those of you who have managed to complete this, maybe you can go up and look at those list slicing examples as well. And maybe what we'll do is we'll take a break here. So I had scheduled a break after some time. Let's take a break here, and you guys can maybe in the background try to keep solving these questions, and maybe something you missed out earlier, or maybe just try out after I have showed you the solution. So what we'll do now, actually this break was meant to be a session where you could just ask your questions. So how we'll be doing this is we'll be giving you your microphone access, but the way you'll be asking questions is you just raise your hand. Arpit will be calling out your name, and maybe you can just turn on your mic and just speak, like ask your question right there. So that's how we can do it. So this is to ensure that you get enough time to just work on these questions. So these are little important. So that's why I thought maybe you can spend some time there. And having a break is the best way to do it. So anyone, any questions, or like it can be anything related to data science, not just a workshop, or anything in general, or any difficulty you have faced through this workshop. Just go back here. You can maybe just raise your hand if you have any questions. Yeah, Shreyas, go ahead. Hello.
Yeah, hi. So I'm actually interested in data visualization,
Hmm.
deep learning and neural nets, that is. So I know that I know where to start. Basic problems like cats and dogs and flower classification, those kinds of problems. But could you like give me a roadmap ahead of it, so that I just don't get lost in the middle?
So,
If
like, let me just ask you a question before I answer that. Are you what is your inclination? Is it towards academics or a professional, like some IT profession? Like, so my answer would vary based on what you tell.
uh, I didn't get your question.
So, are you like trying to pursue a PhD or something, like stay in academics itself,
Mhm.
with respect to deep learning or whatever this area is? Or are you coming trying to come into industry where you like deploy solutions, applications maybe for your users? So, what is it you're trying to do? Like, what is your
Right now, the goal is just to learn. I mean, uh, I really do not have a long-term picture.
Okay, so actually the answer for those two things would
Tell
be
me.
different. That's why I asked that question. So let me just answer for both. So if you're into academics and you just started off with cats and dogs, and maybe I think you did MNS data set as well. What I would ask you to do is try out more, go look up at a survey paper which talks about different types of deep learning algorithms which have come up. So this is a very trending field, and what you might have tried might be some tutorial which was given out way ago, like huge time ago. It's not recent. Maybe just try to read some recent paper, try to see if you're able to understand it, and maybe go ahead and try to implement it. Once you do that, you'll get a more deeper understanding of how you solve problems, how you look at different problems. So that's one advice. If you are if you want to go deeper, that's one way you can go. Because when you are solving something besides the basic thing, you'll need to do some things by yourself. No one is going to provide like tutorial for you to how to implement a specific research paper, right? You'll need to figure out some steps yourself, and therein you'll start learning more things, why your model is not training, why how different type of data in the field have different problems when you work with them. So those sort of things come up. However, if you're coming to industry, I would say your knowledge on cats and dogs would be sufficient. What you would mainly focus on is more on how your models behave when your data changes. So you'll be needing to focus more on robustness of your model, that the more kind of input data your customer gives or some application is giving you, you should be able to handle it. So there are two different paths. So depending on what you pick, you'll be going deeper into that particular field. It's not one solution works for all, right?
Okay, so when we come to the research paper part, uh, when you say implementation, you mean the most relevant ones or the ones I find interesting or close to what I want to learn, right?
Yes. So let's say for cats and dogs, you're doing a classification problem, right?
Hmm.
So pick something in that niche. So since you're already familiar with class and dogs classification of image, pick something similar, but try to make sure it's a bit more complicated than what you already did. So that's how you pick it. Like you do not make it way too hard, nor you make it way too easy for you. So it should be somewhere around it. The more you read, the more you'll get to know which type of problems. You'll automatically think that, okay, this is how I solve this problem. This is so this is my model. Maybe this is how I'll train it. And so I'll suggest you to do more hands-on, like with more data, and just go ahead and try to implement some real-world problems. So that's how you'll learn more. So,
Okay.
so that's my suggestion. So that's how I would tackle if I were in your place.
So when you say read more papers or papers, right?
Yes, just make sure that your skill set is matching what's currently going on. So that's how you evaluate yourself, right? So
Hmm.
there's some recent paper someone is able to do that. Like if I'm also able to do that, I'm on par with who is going there. So that's how you start comparing yourself with what's going on in the field. It would be difficult, a little difficult to start. I would suggest you to. Are you a student, by the way? So.
No, no, no. I'm a professional.
Oh, yeah, gotcha. Okay. So getting a mentor would be helpful when you're doing this. So asking someone for help who can guide you, because you can get lost. There are too many resources, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes we
Right.
get lost when we are doing something like that. Having a good mentor would help you have a direction. So that's one thing you would need. But besides that, you can just always keep trying new problems, trying to understand how people dealt with new things. Do subscribe to some newsletters as well, just to stay updated on what's happening.
Um, how to uh, how to know the latest papers? Like, is there some website for it?
So I presently am not into research. I'm into professional. But when I
Hmm.
was a student, what I used to do was look at these conferences. You have some like for each field, you have various conferences which are pretty good, and you can see papers published in those conferences. You'll by simple Google search, you'll be able to get which conferences those are.
Cool, cool.
The
Thanks.
other way you can get it is by subscribing to some newsletters. There are some pretty good newsletters. I'm not into neural networks right now, so I'm not aware of what's going on there. For at least for data science, I follow Data Elixir. I can give you that. There you'll be finding different news articles which will keep you up to date with what's happening in the industry, what something new came up, or is there some new tool you have to look at. So newsletters do help.
Okay,
That's one way.
sounds good. Yes, thank you.
So, any more questions? Shreyas, hi. I think you raised your hand. Hello. Hello, Shreyas. You're on mute.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I You just answered my question.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Okay. So, if anyone has any questions, maybe they can ask. So, by the way, there's this YouTube channel called 10-minute papers. I'm not sure if you have seen
I've
that.
heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was very nice. I used to follow that. It's been a while since I saw that.
2 minute papers, I guess. I've
2 minutes. Yeah, yeah, 2 minute papers. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been
right.
a while since yeah, 2 minutes papers. Yeah. So this channel is pretty good. It summarizes new latest research papers which are trending, and I think it does a very good job summarizing what it's trying to do. So you can just look at it for 2 minutes. You can understand the summary and whatever pikes your interest. So let's say image classification is something you like. just pick a paper which is talking about image classification, go and read it. So yeah, this was something I used to follow. Like this is a very nice place where you can get this information.
Okay. I did this some time back, but I wasn't sure if, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
even if it's nothing, you're getting more information about your field, right? That's always nice.
Yeah, right,
So,
right.
so there's no way we're going to sit and read so many papers. This guy reads for us. Like I think every day he publishes a video. So I think it's the best place to get a summary of whatever is going on.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, maybe we can go ahead. We can drop the break. Okay, so okay, getting back to these questions. So how do you get the first 100? So what we were talking about is iLock selection tools in Pandas. You have rows and columns to do this. How do you get the first 100 rows number from 100 to 200 and columns from 1 to 5? So the way you do that is iLock of this is a standard syntax. You have rows, comma columns, right? So you want rows 1 to 100. So that would be slicing from starting from 100 plus your index plus 1, that is 201. Similarly, when you come back here, it will be 1 colon 5 plus 1, that is 6. So this will be giving you the result of whatever was asked here. So that is 101 rows and 5 columns. And the next one, if you want to get all rows with only columns number 2 and 5. So that would be requiring to use a list, as I showed in the second example, where for all you'll need to use the colon dot lock. Want columns number 2 and 5. So this is the way you do it. Okay, the next one. So you want to get the last 5 columns with rows number rows of a specified number. So just tackle this individually. Just start thinking of how do you get rows number 800 and 201. Just divide that 800 and 201. This will be giving you the rows. And then you have comma again and the last 5 columns. So for the last 5 columns, what you'll need to do is so this one was a bit tricky and it was not a direct one. So what you need to do is -5. So this will give you, so minus is a syntax which is used in Python less as well. So this is the actual solution for this. But in case you did not already know about this -5 operator, the way you would have done this is go back to your data set. Where is my data set? Okay. So there's an operator which tells you how many rows or columns your data set has. So let me just do it here. So df.shape gives you how much like what is the shape of your data frame, how many rows and how many columns you have. So you had 20 rows. So what you had to do, this is a tuple. So you could have seen that in that output data frame as well. So you just do 20 minus 5, that is 15, and that's how you get this one. So this was slightly tricky. Like you had to go back to a previous data frame, look at it, and then just get the number from there. Get rows number 5 to 100 using iLock and then perform a describe. So this is just making sure that you also remember your describe and iLock. Make sure that you do use chaining, that you perform a describe and iLock together. So this was to ensure that you are aware that you can use these both simultaneously. So the way you would have done that is press df and just get iLock of the first 5 to 100 rows, that is 5 colon 100 comma. I did not mention anything about the columns. You can just do a column, so it will be giving you all the columns, and then you wanted to get a description of it. So that would be getting you what you wanted. So you could have always tested it like this. So 5 to 100 gets you 95 rows, and then just uncomment this and then do a describe, and then you are getting this data frame. And the question was how many matches have the first innings batters won? That is 44. So this is the one. Get rows number 50 to 200 using ilog functions and perform a describe. Find the value counts of the toss decision. So this is the most complex one out of the bunch. But the way you tackle it would be same. That is first get your df, get your ilog function running. That you get 50 to 100, 101. So earlier I think I made a mistake. It should have been 101. Index plus one. So whatever you're using, it's plus one. So it's 201, and then it will be all. So this will be giving you a data frame which is required. Then first task was to perform a describe, which was simple. What describe here, and you'll find an output. Maybe analyze it. The second part was having value counts for toss decision. You select that toss decision row, toss decision column, and then you do a value counts. So that is so this is the value counts of that particular data frame. So there were for 84 fields where fielding was taken first, and 66 fields where the batting was taken first. So going ahead with indexing. So this is ilog was one way for you to get different types of rows and columns, but there are always different ways to do the same like different ways to do the same thing. So one other way, if you wanted to just select different columns, is by indexing. So you could have always said df of and a list of columns you want inside your entry, so that you get those columns. So if you wanted winner, date, and city, the basic indexing works like this. You just say off and you just provide which columns you want. So this is a common syntax you'll be seeing whenever you look at someone else's notebook or read some data science blog or something. This is a very common syntax where people just slice whatever columns they want. They don't go ahead and do iloc or lock in most of the cases. They just pick whatever columns they want. So this is mostly preference. There's no good or bad practice there. So then next part is using lock. So basic indexing, I just wanted to cover to do this. The other part is lock. So if you remember, if you look at this, what we are doing here is slicing by index. You're giving which index number you want. However, when you look at your data, so when you look at your data frame, your columns are of type string, like there are names. So if you wanted to have something, say I want empire one, who was the empire one, you'll not say I want this column number. You cannot even figure out looking at the data frame what is the column number for this. So pandas gives you that flexibility. Your ilog function turns into lock function, where you can you can provide so basically what this takes is labels of that particular data frame. I'll not go into what labels is, but basically it's whatever is highlighted here. So whatever is there in black are the labels. So for the row, these are the labels. For the column, these are the labels. For rows, it's just integers. So you can use an integer slicing here. But if it was text, which can be the case, you'll need to provide strings here as well. So in this case, I just selected the first row number 1 to 9 and the column city and so this is more like a heads up section that there are different ways to perform different things. It's okay if you're not able to remember everything, but it's good to at least know that if you are facing some difficulty, there was a pandas function which was helping me pick columns from columns by name instead of index. I just go look up what that is, go back to, okay, this is lock function which I'll be using. See the syntax for it in the documentation and go ahead and implement. Okay, maybe we can skip this section. So what this section is telling you is helping you understand how you can get index by get things by index. So it's asking you to reinforce whatever you have learned here and apply it as an example. So I'll just give you the solution. So it will not be, so this part is just like was like a heads up before we took the break. It was not useful for anything which was going to be discussed after the break. So it's just I'll just give you the solution. Df dot it's asking you to get columns by index. What you're going to do is just copy this and provide this list inside. So you're going to get those columns by index. Use log to get the first 100 rows with all columns. So df dot perform a describe. Is there something wrong? Just try to see what is or what that is. Df dot lock and the first 100 rows. So 101 colon comma 101. I'm using that same syntax and perform a describe. So when you perform a describe, so you are able to see that first thing, the number of count of this is less because you're selecting a subset of rows, and these are 100 rows. But when you add these up, okay, these are 101 rows. I did a mistake there. So these are 100 rows, and you see that there was no one which there was no entry where there was no result. So like these both add up to 100, and that what this is saying is it is asking you to look that there was no tie or no decision made in the first 100 entries of your data. That's what you had to look for. Okay, you already had the break time. So let's go back to filtering. So filtering is one of the most important thing of this data frame. So, okay, let me ask you one thing. So before I continue to this, so let me just turn on the mic and ask you. So, like, do you want me to continue or take a separate session or like a continuation of this one? Because I think the content here, like, I don't know if it was too heavy or too light or like if it was sufficient or not. So if you want me to continue, I'll just go ahead with this section. I'll tell you what is in there. First one is filtering. You have filtering for you, like how do you filter different rows of your data frame based on conditions. Say you wanted to talk about a city, Mumbai, like just want a data frame of Mumbai. I'm showing you queries how you can just get all the data frame rows of just the city Mumbai. There are other filters you can use as well, like how many runs. After that, we go ahead, do it ourselves. And then after that, we go to group by operators. Group by operators are used for doing a little more complex operations. So which help you just get, so I'll show you an example. So if you wanted for each season, what is the maximum number of runs, you'd be running something like a group by. And after that, we have a very small section for data visualization. There's not much here. There's just an histogram example. And finally, there's something called as putting all pieces together. So do you want me to go ahead, or because it's already almost 2 hours, so I shooted a little overtime. So what do you want me to do? So if you want me to continue, I'll just go ahead and complete this, or we can have a separate session on the next week. So what do you want? Just so you can turn on your mic or raise your hands if you want me to continue. Hello.
Yes, you are there.
Yeah. What do you guys want? Is it okay?
Yeah, Shrikant, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you should go ahead. So finish it off. So wrapping it all
Yeah.
together.
So it might take 45 more minutes, if that's fine. Right. Okay. Okay, fine then. I'll just wrap it up. Okay, so going ahead. So we were talking about query parameters. So till now, what you saw is taking your data frame, slicing by indices, like selecting parts of your data frame, looking at describe function to know what's happening in your data frame, and like some basic analysis of how do you ask questions. But when you're working, when you just want to analyze in more detail, say, let's say, for example, you were looking at your data frame and you wanted to just see entries for matches played in Mumbai. So this is a common thing you might ask when you're working with the data set, and how do you do that? So that brings you to filtering, where which helps you bring different queries to your data frame. So let's say you want to have this city called Mumbai. So the syntax is like this, where you have a df, then you have a query inside, and when you're running this, you get the only the rows which the city was Mumbai. What's happening in background is the first question you need to be asking. So what's happening? Just run what's there inside. So when you start running what's there inside, what you'll be seeing is you are getting an object which has just true or false. So what this is essentially telling is like the first row is where Mumbai is true, the second is not, the third is true, and so on. So you can just go back and re-verify this. It's just telling you what's happening. It's just telling you how your data frame is looking. So city is Mumbai, true, false, and this was true again. So we are getting this Boolean data frame where Boolean, it's called a Pandas series, which is giving you true or false. What we are doing is just passing this as an index to your uh, uh, Pandas function. So what is doing is, wherever it was true, it is giving you that particular row. So that's what's happening in the background. So that's important to know. So now you'll be able to do different queries. So if you wanted to know what's happening in Chennai, or like how many matches were played in Chennai, you can just go ahead and just look at all the matches played in Chennai. You can always do whatever you have learned till now, and maybe just do a describe if you want. So if you had a question, say, what was the maximum number of runs that people won for matches in Chennai? So you do this, and the answer is 97. So for IPL season 2008 to 2019, 97 was the highest number of runs by which a team won batting first in Chennai. So you can answer your questions like this. So Mumbai, you can do this same for Mumbai if you want, and anything. So that's how your queries are important. So once you filter your data frame, then you pass it to describe. You can perform operations which are more complicated and which are of interest to you. So this is an example of how you do with a string. So city was a string which had different fields. In some cases, you have fields which are integers, that is, say, numbers 38, 24, and so on. So for them, you can use a greater than or less than operator. Similarly, how you would do a normal pandas normal Python comparison. That is, just say df dot win by runs greater than 50. So this would be getting you what are the indices where win by runs is greater than 50, and it will be filtering that for you and giving it. So this is how you do it. So maybe after this, maybe you wanted to know which city, like what are the cities where mostly this greater than 50 takes place. So you just do dot city dot value counts. So this is just telling you that whatever you have learned till now can be just applied. So once you have querying, you can just always use whatever you have learned above and just plumb it with it. So the answer to that was wins by runs is greater than 50 is mostly happening in Bangalore. I think Bangalore is a batting stadium, so that is most likely possible, where the second team is not able to chase whatever was there, and you win by a huge margin. So that also validates whatever knowledge, pre-existing knowledge you have about the data. So let's say you wanted to get something more complicated. So for in this case, what I did is I ran two queries which said that first get me the city, get me whatever is greater than 50, and then filter all cities and get the value counts. What if I just wanted to know what are the data frame objects which have only like city as Mumbai and the runs greater than 50? I want to run two queries basically. Earlier we were just running one, where either we were selecting the city or we were selecting the runs. So this is a syntax for it, where you can just add or and or different queries. So you do use brackets and you write your query one, then you use and then you use brackets to add your query. So this is how it would look when you write your code, where df of data city is like city is Mumbai, and your win by runs is greater than 50. So what this is helping you do is answer very specific questions. So so when you're working on this, someone might have come to you and asked, how many times did people win with more than 50 runs when a match of IPL was held in a certain city? So this is how you would have solved that problem if someone came to you asking that, given that you have access to this data. So so let's go for a more complex query. So additional part of the query where you are using your or operator. Here you are using an and operator, or there's also a logical or which you can use, where if the city is Mumbai or the season is 2019. So before you go ahead and try this out yourself, one important thing is these parentheses are needed. So like if you see, there are small parentheses here, and that's a very weird syntax which your pandas requires, that whatever query you do needs a parenthesis. So that's required, and you will need to do it. So whatever I posted here, that this or brackets are required, are needed to be done. So this is the most common error which people get when they are working with this multiple queries of filtering. And you can just try out yourself, and if you face some issues, you can just post it. So there are a couple of questions here.
So, Rikith, one question. Why filtering operation require two DFs?
Okay. So you're asking why are you giving like why are you giving this multiple times? First you're like selecting this, and then you're selecting this. Like why are you mentioning DF multiple times? Is that the question? Okay, maybe I'll just assume that's the question. If it's not, we'll just post it in the chat. So if you remember, I told you how this works, right? So you can just copy paste this, and you'll be able to see that this is giving an output of true or false. So you'll need another series of this true or false operators, and just maybe post that.
So, Rikith, let me turn on the microphone. I think it's
Yeah,
more
okay.
specific. Yeah. Jens, you can go ahead.
Yeah, actually, in the first time we have given a DF. Then again one opening bracket we are giving. Then again a DF we are giving. Why two times in the first I'm asking?
Yeah, okay. So you're saying why can't pandas infer that I'm working in context of this object, right? So I'm inside DF. Why can't you just infer that I'm inside DF, and why do you want me to give DF again and again for you?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, so that is a problem with pandas. I was going to come to that. So like that was the next section, problem with filtering. So the easiest answer for you is what pandas expects here is either it expects a Boolean list. So if you just gave a true or false list, say I want a true list, I'm creating a list, say of true, and replicating it 746 times. So what this is saying is like it's even taking a list. So it is not just expecting pandas output to be there. It is written in such a way that it can even take a list of just true or false. You can just change this value of true or false. This is a list I generated just now. So that's why Python does not, so pandas does not understand what you're giving, basically. That's how the internal implementation of that is done. So what you're essentially doing here is just breaking the problem. You're just like first filtering out, making your true or false, then again oring it manually. And okay, this is not the best way to do it. So when you're working professionally, this is not how we do it. So I'll just come to that. But most of the cases, like if you follow any tutorial, like this is what they'll be teaching you. And most likely you might get confused by why this workshop did not include this, while this is what is being talked about everywhere. There's a huge problem that you actually rightly pointed out, that this is something not so nice when you're working with this. So maybe just do this exercises, like try it yourself section. Maybe get more idea of why this is problematic. Like as you keep doing this more and more, Like if you just solve these questions, you'll feel like whatever was the question just now, you'll just understand that this is problematic. So just do it. Let's just try this out. So this is because just for sake of completeness, because most of the tutorials talk about the same way of filtering different things. Okay, so maybe I'll just discuss the solutions for you. So the city is Jaipur and the toss decision is field. So what you'll be doing is df of this weird syntax again, where first you need to provide the parentheses, and then you do a df of city double equal to Jaipur. And the second part is it's and operator, your second query, which says that df dot toss decision equals to so this is getting you the data frame you required, and you can either have done a describe, which would have given you the output of saying that win by runs is the maximum of win by runs is 65, or else the correct solution for this would have been win by runs. Just select that particular column and then do a max. So you had to write it in the best way possible. So it would have been this. So it's 65. So one more thing, I have used this interchangeably, like calling it by a column or using the dot notation, or you can do both. But however, when you're like if you want to write professional code, it's recommended that you use dot notation, because this can lead to errors like city, like you may misspell something, and this does not let you. It helps, like it gives you autocomplete, which helps you just complete whatever is right. Okay, win by runs is greater than 20 and win by wickets is less than 5. So we do the same thing again, df, and start filtering. The first part is df dot win by runs is greater than 20, and by wickets is less than 5. Wait, something went wrong. Oh. So, so when you look at this is an empty data frame. Why is this? Like, is this expected? Yes, it is expected because you either win by runs or you either win by wickets. And what you're asking here is saying that I want both winning by runs that is greater than 20, and also the person has to win by wickets. So if you had looked at your data frame, one of these entries will not be present. So in most of like in every case, this condition will fail because one of these entries will be missing. So either this will be false or this will be false. And when you're falsing, when you're ANDing false with something else, it's always false. So that's why you do not get anything when you query this. That's why the output of this is weird. That is empty. So the correct way you would have done this, like maybe the original question which you were trying to answer is or, like win by runs is greater than 20, or your win by wickets is less than 5. So when you do this, you're getting entries because it's just choosing this or this entry, win by wickets or win by runs. So that will exist. So you're getting some entries from it. And after that, you're being asked for toss decisions value counts, where this was just referencing, like making sure that you remember the previous exercises you have done. So you get field is 157 and bat is 86. Okay, the problem with filtering. So someone just pointed out this already, like this syntax is weird. Like Pandas is doing something very weird, and I'd not like seeing it. So that's where actually that question might have come from. Like, why am I writing df again and again? Why can't just Pandas figure out what's going on here? So if I wanted to write a more complex query, say city is Mumbai or season is 2019, or win by runs is greater than 50 and win by wickets is less than 5. So this is a very complex query. First point, it has extra parentheses. So they'll start looking something like this, where you have parentheses. Again, inside your parentheses, you have a query, and there's some query, you have or. So if someone is looking, like I'm sharing this code with you, you're looking at it in the first glance, you're not going to understand anything. Like it's very difficult. Even if you share something, if someone shares something like this to me, it's very difficult to understand what's exactly happening here, if unless I spend some time. And if you follow a Pythonic way of programming, it says that whatever you write should be simple and easy. That's the zen of Python. So this is not fitting with whatever is there. So it is not fitting with your Python standards. So that's why this is not something you use or you would want to use. That's why it's looking weird and it's not working. So what's the alternative if you want to do something like this? So you also have query. So when we work with this professionally, this is not something we push. Like we will not be pushing this operators where like this a complex query is there and you're not able to understand. We use this query function. What query function helps you do is it helps you write SQL, like simple queries. Like it's almost similar to SQL now. But what it's doing is, so you can see this query. So it's saying df.query, win by runs is greater than 10. It's as simple as that. And then you go ahead. So you're not referencing df here, unlike this. And you don't have that weird parenthesis syntax going around here, which is making this very inconvenient to read and understand. So if you wanted more complex queries, you can just add or and with whatever you're trying to do, and it works as expected. So this is the column name you're trying to refer to. Win by runs is the column name. So whatever column name you give here would work if it's a relevant column. So if you gave some wrong column name, it won't work. So one disadvantage here is you're using strings, and using strings is always very difficult to manage, but still it is a lot better than what's going on here, like which is completely like impossible to understand. So so you do an or operator, and if you wanted to write the same query or similar query which I mentioned above, you do this. You can also add parentheses. So if you wanted this to happen first and then you wanted to do this, you can add small parentheses which help you do that. So for like you can use double equal to, less than, greater than, same comparison operators you have in Python. There's one more thing, I think I missed it in this Collab notebook, where you can reference variables there. So let me just copy paste this whole thing. Just copy paste this whole thing. So let's say when you're writing your code, you wanted to have this as a variable. So generally we use variables to like have different kinds of output so that we don't hard code. So let's say I had a variable called runs and it had value of 10 and I wanted to reference it here. So what you can do here is just use at the rate. At the rate is a special symbol within this query which helps you refer external Python objects. So you could have done this and it works as expected. It's taking your value from runs. So if I make this very high, 999, there should be no column coming up because there's, okay, oh, is there something greater than, okay, there's an or here. So because should be less than 2. Okay. So that's how it works. So maybe you can also, I notebook. So, but just remember that you can use at the rate to like refer external variables. So time to do it.
Rikith, one question.
Yes.
So can we also use f strings?
Can we also use?
F strings.
Yes, you can always do that. So this is a Python string, right? So you can always use an f string to. So what f string is doing is it's replacing your variable there, right? Oh, I wrote something wrong. Oh, sorry. So this is what they wanted to ask, right? I'm using an f string to just write my query. So what why f string is different than at the rate is, I'll maybe give you a more elaborate example to make that clear. So what is the difference between f string? So f string, what it's doing is it's constructing the string for you. So it's just replacing 10 here, knowing whatever is happening. But what at the rate is doing, so if I write the same at the rate runs, I do a f string here, it'll not, if I just try to print that string here, it'll just say at the rate runs. These are two different things. At the rate runs is referring to a variable. So this variable would have been a list as well. So let's take a live example, right? So cities is this, right? So when I'm trying to do this, let's place my query and do this n and enter it cities. So this runs as expected. You're getting cities from Chennai or Mumbai, and but the like when you're using f strings, you don't know how would you format this variable into your query string. Like how do you do that? I'm not sure if it works, but this is not how we usually do it. So I don't think it should work, but let me just try. So it does not work. See, so if you okay, it should work. It's the first time even I'm trying this. I've not tried and just giving an f string instead of using those at the rate variables. So since using at the rate in queries is the standard practice, we just follow that. I've never tried this. This is the first time I'm seeing. So it seems like it works. So there's no issue. Yes, you can go ahead using your f strings as well. So I think that makes it more convenient to whatever you have been doing. So yeah, thanks for raising that question. Even I did not know this. Thanks. So you can use both. You can use either at the rate. So if you want to go by the standard documentation, what they usually ask, you can use at the rate. And if you want to go by what like what you already know, that is f strings, that's formatted strings, you can just go with your formatted strings. Both work. Thanks for asking, by the way. Even that was new for me. So you can maybe just try this. So here I'm asking you to use both of those queries. So the more complex one, this version, like where you're using this and operators and like this very complex query, and also then try it with dot query. So when you do that, you'll get a feel of why using query is important. This is more like feeling and going ahead in your journey using dot query in contrast to what using that filtering, which is usually shown in most of the tutorials. So that's not so easy to understand. Let's not use that. Okay, maybe I'll just discuss the answer. So I'm not going to write it using the other filtering method. That is just tedious. I just wanted to give you a feel of what is the difference between both of them. I'm just going to write the query, which is the standard practice which we use. So df dot query. Uh, so it asks me city is Mumbai. City double equal to Mumbai. And field, or so this needs to be in Pandas, right? Okay, so this was a solution to that. You can always try writing this in the previous syntax I showed you, but that is just that just becomes tedious. I just wanted to get you to get a feel of why query is more easy and nice to use compared to that writing df again and again. City is Mumbai. Let's copy this. So the city is Mumbai, or the season is 2019. And so I'm just writing down whatever is there, but I've just even copy pasted what's written there. It would work. But this is easy, so that's what I wanted to show. Using query is more easy than using that weird filtering which is provided by Pandas. So maybe if you want to take of something from this workshop, this is the main thing. Like how do you filter? If you are already proficient with data science, this is something very important you can take ahead from this talk, where use query instead of your standard syntax. So the question was how many rows are there in this output. So I ran this query, I got my data frame, then I used this shape. So I mentioned that shape is used to get how many rows and columns you have. And here I can see I have 10 rows and 20 columns. 20 is the total number of columns which is there. Okay, so I think this is the last section, that is group by. So group by is one of my favorite operator. It is slightly advanced for this talk, but I really wanted to include this because this actually shows you, like, this combined with querying shows you the entire power of what Pandas is capable of doing. So that's the reason I decided to add this. This section is slightly more complex than the previous ones. So let's just get started. So earlier we were trying to do this. What is maximum number of runs by which someone won? What if so this is giving me for my entire data frame, what is the maximum number of runs which is run, like, so it's just taking this column and giving me my maximum, like what is the maximum of that column. But that gives you an answer, like, say, like what was the highest number of runs by which someone won in IPL from 2008 to 2019. So that's a question this is answering. But what if someone is coming to you and asking you, what is the highest number of runs per season? That becomes slightly complex. You cannot use the same thing. So based on the knowledge you have till now in this workshop, so one thing what you can do is query. You can just filter out the season. In this, I use the other syntax. So what is I use like the other syntax where to keep it simple. So what you can do is get all the unique seasons, df.season.unique will give you all unique seasons, that is 2008 till 2019. Let's run it. So this is an array. You can always loop over an array. And in this, I'm querying what is, like, I'm doing a filter over this and just printing win by runs and also the season. So this is achieving what we wanted to do. But the problem is you're using a for loop. So there's one golden rule. So if you want to remember this, if you're doing a for loop while using pandas, you're definitely doing something wrong. So that is the golden rule. So if you are in a situation where you want to use a for loop, most likely you're not using some pandas functionality. That's why you're ending up doing a for loop, and for loop is not so efficient compared to what pandas does. So that is because of performance reasons. That's not part of this workshop, but I can explain you in like after this workshop if you're interested on why you shouldn't be using for loops. So golden rule of thumb: never use a for loop. Like this is not how you achieve this. So, but based on the knowledge, this was how you would achieve it. So how you do it is a group by operation. What group by is saying is that I'm giving you a particular column, say season in our case, and I want to know, I want to run each query based on that season. So you're essentially doing the same thing, where instead of this filter, you're saying I want a group by, and you just give me whatever is there. So it's just, maybe it's just internally breaking it into different small problems, where for 2008, what was the win by runs and maximum, and for this, what was the maximum runs. So when you're doing this, you're getting the same output. That's what group by is. This group by can be used in anything. So let's say you wanted it for city. What is the highest number of runs for each city? Just go there and you have this. So you can see different. So in Kanpur, so what you can infer here, that no one has ever won batting first in Kanpur for IPL seasons 2008 to 2019 only. Like if you're batting first, you never won there. So that's what this is saying. So you can get interesting things once you just start playing around with group by. But you can see how powerful this is, where it's letting you do maybe like a sub query, like it's doing what this for loop was doing for you, where it's trying to run different filterings and running over it. So for basic understanding, knowing what like it's doing, that is good enough, but it's not exactly doing that. It's just an internal working thing beyond the scope of this workshop. So going ahead, like you can do a describe as well. So once you have this, so here you're just doing a max. So what it was doing is on each of the sub part, let's call it partition, each group. So let's call it a group maybe. For each group, it's going and running a max operate. So wherever the city was Abu Dhabi, it went and ran my max query for win by runs. So similarly, I could have run the describe function. So what I did is I did the same. Instead of max, I used describe. So if you remember this output, now you are able to get it for every season. So that's how powerful your describe function is. Just with just two lines of code, what you're able to get is for each season, what is the minimum, maximum, mean is the average, and the number of entries for that season. So how many matches did a person win batting first is the information you can get from this. Like 2013, it was the highest, it looks like it. So this is like a very powerful tool. Group by is slightly complex to understand at first, but once you start doing more, using this more and more, the amount of information you can get at a different granularity is way too high. You can already see that just running this, I can get so many insights from this. What happened in season one, like what was the minimum number of runs by which someone won, like 1 run someone won, 3 runs someone won, like what was the highest, 146 was the highest, it happened in 2017. I can even answer that. Earlier I was just getting 146 was the highest. Now I can even answer that 146 happened in 2017 season. So group by is a very important tool in your arsenal. It's slightly complicated, but it's good to know that you can do something like this. So it's way more efficient than using a loop. And so if you get a case where you're trying to use a loop, try to think of a group by operator or something similar to get rid of that loop. That's how you learn pandas more and more. So you'll get problems where you'll feel like I'll just use a loop and get rid of this. Don't do that. Spend some time. Go back. Maybe check group by operator, or there are some other functions which help you mitigate your loops. Just try to use them and get it there. So maybe you can just try it out. These are two different queries. For rows number 80 to 300, what is the least win by wickets for each city? Okay, let me just go ahead and give you the solution. So this is actually in the interest of time. Like I have exceeded half an hour already. So what is it asking for? Let me just break down the problem. So it's asking me that from my DF, I want rows number 80 to 300. So I can use that iloc function, which we earlier discussed, to get that, right? So I just say, I go for iloc from 80 colon 301, 300, and a colon. So this will be giving you my 80 to 300 rows. And once I got this, I'm looking at the second problem. Like I've already solved this part. Now I'm looking at the second part. What is the least number of wickets for each city? Let's just ignore for city for now. In this data frame, can I get what is the least win by wickets? So the way I would be doing that is dot win by wickets. So this is something we have solved earlier already in this workshop. So you'll be getting for all, like 2 is the minimum number of wickets in these rows. So there's one additional thing where you need for each city. So if you're looking at for, you can infer that there's a group by operation. Like wherever you're thinking of for, most likely it's a group by operation. But where do you need to place this? So here I've already filtered out my wickets. I'm not going to place it here. I'm not going to place it after minimum because it's an integer here. So most likely it will be here. Like I'm going to do a group by on the thing I logged on. So I've subsetted this, and then I'm doing a ilog on this. So so I do a group by right here. Like on the subset, I'm going to do a group by. Just give my C. So that's how you solve it. So why explain the working process of this is because since this is getting more and more complicated, I want you to understand how you exactly solve the problem. Like break it down into smaller problems. The first problem was just I want these rows. The second problem was I want what is the minimum of wickets, which I wrote down. Then I had to just figure out where I go and place my city. So when you break down this problem into smaller parts, it'll become easy for you. If you go trying to solve this as a whole, you'll get very complicated. You cannot write this whole query in one go. Like it's difficult. You can do that with practice, but on the first shot, it looks very difficult and maybe even overwhelming. I'm not like this is pretty hard for me. I'm just starting out. But once you break it down, it looks simple for you. So this ilog, so you know already group by, you did a win by wickets and you did a win. So for all matches in Mumbai, what are the maximum number of runs per season? So let's just tackle this the same way what we were doing it earlier. We take a DF. Then what you do is for all matches in Mumbai. So when you look at this, you can infer that you're doing a query operator here, right? You're doing a query operation here where you want a specific city. So city equal to Mumbai. So this gives you all city, all the matches played at the city Mumbai. That's also the first part of the problem. The second part is what are the maximum number of runs maximum number of runs by which you have won. Okay, I did not frame it right. So win by runs, what is the maximum of it? It's asking that. So I just do the same thing again, win by runs dot max. So this solves the first two part of the problem. Now you're left with group by season. So once you did a query, you got a data frame here. Just as I explained above, you can group by on your data frame. So you do that. That's how you solve it. And where do you put group by? So you look at which subset you are looking at. So this is talking about only matches which occurred in Mumbai. At this point, you have only matches which have occurred in Mumbai. If you place your group by operator here, you are saying for every season. Like that's not what it's asking, right? Maybe that's a way to write the query, but that's not efficient. First, you need to minimize the number of things in your data frame, and then you apply your group by. So this is one way you do it. Okay, and this actually is the last part of and the most complicated part, where you do multiple group bys. Say, let me just run this query instead of trying to explain what it's doing. So, what if I wanted to uh, or have the number of maximum of win by runs for people who have batted first for each season, and also people who have fielded first for the for each season. You'll need to run so if you are doing this traditionally, you'll like two for loops for this, for each unique value of toss decision, and the second for loop would be for each season, for each unique value of a season. I'll go and run a maximum operation. So that's how your for loop would have looked. However, you can just run a group by operator here again. Just this takes in a list as well. Earlier, I was just showing you how to use a single one, but like you can also go ahead and just give two operators. So if you just look at your data frame right now, it looks like this. So it nicely segregates your index for you. It says for batting for 2008 season, this was the maximum. For people who chose to bat in 2014 first, they had 93 as a maximum winning score, and so on. So this is a pretty neat piece of information. I have commented one piece of code there, that is reset index. So what reset index is doing is just, so this query is making you a Pandas series, something called as Pandas series. And your reset index is just taking out something called as index and placing them as columns. So you don't need to know the details, but like it's something good if you want to do more operations on it. If you do a reset index, you can do more operations on this. So that's the way it is done. So like here's a more complicated query. So what we are doing here is we are selecting a subset of columns. The columns include win by runs and win by wickets, because these are the only two integer columns which we have. Then we are selecting toss decision and season. These are used for these will be used for a group by operation, which I just did. And then I'm using aggregation. So this function called aggregation. So let's say here you wanted not only max, but also minimum, like minimum and maximum both. Or say you even wanted count, like you wanted multiple things, not just one. So you can use this aggregation function and pass it a list of whatever you want. In this case, I passed min and max, and it gives you a pretty neat output on the this x-axis on this row side. You have already seen this, where it segregates you nicely this like first index and the like secondary index of the group by. And what your aggregation function is doing is separating your column index into multiple indices, where this is the top level, and then you have the minimum and maximum. This is a slightly more complicated operation, but this is giving you the complete idea of how you would be working with data very efficiently. Like if you wanted to answer some like queries like in 2013, when batting was taken first, what was the minimum number of wickets? If someone comes and asks you, this is the query you write. It's just 4 lines. You write these 4 lines of code and you give that person the answer is 4. Imagine you going through different Excel sheets to get to this number. You're just writing a small piece of 3 lines of code, which is fetching you this number. So that is what I wanted to illustrate here, not to overwhelm you with a lot of syntax, Python syntax and Pandas syntax, but this is what you can do if you actively keep learning data science and Pandas. So this is something which you would be able to write very easily. So it's your turn. Maybe we can skip your turn part to the next after I complete data visualization as well, and maybe I can keep it open for question answer round as you guys keep doing your turn thing. So it is. Let me just complete it. So this is a very small part. It's just talking about introduction to data visualization. So all this while, since the past 2.5 hours, I've been talking about data in terms of just numbers. But however, like when you try to show this to people, like when I just show this to someone who is not so keen about numbers or data, they're like, what is this? Like, why do I even need to look at these numbers and cannot make any sense of it? Like, this is a very common thing which people face. So if you're going to become a data scientist, maybe this is a very common thing you face, where you just show this data frame to someone and they're like, I don't want to look at this. I want to look at something which is more understandable. That's where your data visualization comes in. I actually wanted to add more, but this was already a lengthy one. So I just added some introduction to it. The first one is histograms. So DF, so let's go back to how our DF looks. So your df.winner looks something like this. So it has different names of winners who have won in that particular match record. So each row corresponds to a record, and this is giving you who won that particular match. And let's say someone is asking you, I want to see how different people have won different matches, across the whole 2008 to 2019 data set. What you do is a histogram. I'll come to what these are, but let's just look at it first. Okay, what do you show to other person when you're trying to explain this? So when you're trying to explain to someone, so if you are a cricket geek or maybe a football or NBA geek as well, you should have seen charts like this. When you go to CrickBuzz, Crickinfo, or even when you're watching it on TV, these are the type of charts which people show you. They don't throw numbers at you. Like this is not something they will be throwing at you. They'll be showing you charts, because charts are something very easy to understand. And if you're trying to answer a question, even so, you can answer questions even looking at this chart. Which team won the maximum number of times? The answer is Mumbai Indians. This is actually common knowledge. This is widely known to anyone following IPL, that Mumbai Indians has won most number of matches. And after this would most likely be Chennai, and which is sure the case. However, you can just show people that this graph, and they can understand by themselves that Kochi Tuskers did not win too many matches. The reason for that is different, but like you can just show them, and this is more easy to understand and show and explain than throwing some random numbers at them. So the idea what is like you explore data, like you get whatever you want using data exploration. You get these numbers, whatever you want. But at the end of the day, when you're showing it to someone, or like maybe trying to explain it to someone, you don't show them these numbers. What you try to do is go back and try to make a chart out of it. So once you have the data frame, making a chart is always easy. So this is just 3 lines of code. Coming back to what I did. So it's something called as Plotly Express. So one more thing here. If you look at any tutorial online, they'll be starting with matplotlib. See, there's no offense against matplotlib, but that is like dead. Not dead. No one uses it. Like the syntax for matplotlib is very complicated. It's unnecessarily complicated, and it like to do a chart like this in matplotlib, you're going to go like crazy. So most of the tutorials just show you matplotlib, but that's not which is the best out there. If you want dynamic plots, I mean, you can just interact with them. So in this one, I can just interact with this plot, and like I can see what's happening, zoom in, zoom out, do whatever you want. We use Plotly Express. So this is what we widely use actively at Arista. We use Plotly Express. So this gives you interactive plots. And what this is doing is it's importing a library. Maybe you can go back and check what this is. This has a function called as histogram, with so you can see what is expected by this. So it's taking a data frame as an input, and it's asking you what's on the x-axis. So data frame is the first parameter, and then you have x as a second parameter, and y in case you have a y. In this case, we're not using the y. So x is the only parameter we're giving, and it's just creating a bins for you. You will need to have some understanding of what a histogram is, how is it calculated. So basically what this is doing maybe a group by operation internally, and just throwing out the numbers. So this is actually a graphical representation of this particular thing, df dot value. Winner. So histogram is just a graphical representation of your value counts. You have been using value counts throughout this workshop, and what this is it's just a graphical representation of this, which is easy to understand. Like imagine giving someone this versus giving someone this to understand. Like you already see the difference. That was the idea. So this is the internal what this is doing. Histogram function is most likely calling your value counts of this particular x-axis field, and it's plotting for you. That's some inside information. You can go ahead and do the same thing. You can also do win by wickets. So how many? So winner was a string. So you had different string. It was a categorical, something we call the categorical variable, where we have different strings there. You also have integers. Win by wickets goes from 1 to 10, and you can always see that in a chart. And you also see that people have won many times with 6 wickets. That's more common, because losing 4 wickets or losing 5 wickets and then winning a match, a tight situation match, is good. Or it's rare to win a match with 10 wickets, and it's rare to win a match with just 1 wicket. So those are 2 rare events, and this is more common events. That's what you can infer from this. You can even plot integer variables there. So that's it. Maybe I'll just even complete this part, complete these 2 parts, so that you can just do your hands-on, and we can also have a question answer session going on the side, going side by side as you work along with these 2 problems, the group by problem and this one. So in this example, I explained a histogram. There's something else called as plotly line. The data set I chose do not have anything very good to be showing with your plotly line, but this is what you call a line plot, where you give things on the x-axis and things on the y-axis, and then you just plot it. If you're familiar with 2D geometry or 2D Cartesian coordinates, so this is what we are just doing here. On the x, we are plotting first point, then you're plotting a second point, then you're plotting a third point, then you're drawing a line across that. So how do you attach everything I said together? Like, let's try to see a problem I'm trying to solve. So someone comes to you and asks you, I have 3 teams for me: Sunrisers Hyderabad, Chennai Super Kings, and Deccan Chargers. And I want to look at how does it look for how many matches these teams won per season. So let's say someone is coming and asking you this question, or maybe you just want to answer this question to yourself. What would you do? First, they gave you a list of teams. Let's just make a quick note of that. These are the list of teams I am like they have given me, so I have to work around with them. So just copy this. Okay. So what is the problem they're asking me? They want how many matches did each team win. So like most likely they are asking me for a winner and season-wise winners. So how do they look like? So I'm doing a group by operator there. What is the I'm doing a group by operator here, and then I'm picking the ID. So that was not needed, but it looks something like this. So for each, so first I'm doing a group by operator and then picking the ID field from that. So yeah. Okay, wait. I did a group by operation. Then I picked a field called ID. Then I did count. So I'm taking ID because ID has nothing, has no entry. So what I'll be getting is a complete data frame with the information these guys are requesting, or like someone has requested for me. So this is what it would look like. The winner is Chennai Super Kings, and for season 2008 they won 9 matches. For season 2009 they won 8 matches, and so on. To get a better visualization, like I'm just pushing this as a reset index, which just drops this because I'll need to use these columns in an operation when I'm going to plot it. Then this is the ID column. I chose this because this had no null values. Then let me just rename this. So I do not want this to be ID. No one is going to understand if I say it's an ID. It's not ID. It's a number of matches won, because I've already run the query I want there. Once I do that, my data frame looks like this, which is good to go. So I have all the information I want. And the additional requirement there was I have only 3 teams whose information I'm looking at. I do not want all the teams there. So I want to run a query there. So the winner, so this winner should be in a small list. So that small list is what I'm maintaining here. And I just uncomment this, and I get a very small subset of a data frame. If I go and give someone this data frame, they're not going to be happy. Like, they're not going to go through, look at this and try to understand by themselves what's going on. So I'll need to do a line plot. Like, I'll need to do some plot form. So the most ideal case for this is, since season is time, I can put, usually we put time on the x-axis, and like when you're doing a line plot, if you have time, most likely go and put on the x-axis. That's how you see that timeline is like this, going ahead. So you just pick the season there, and y-axis is most likely matches one. And if there's some way to segregate winners, so maybe first thing you can think of is a for loop, like separate all the streams and plot them one by one. You can have those line plots. However, we'll be using plotly line, where it has this color option, which will be giving you who is the winner for that. So let's just test it out one by one. So it'll be giving you output something like this, where for each color, so color is a winner. So winner is this query. Like, so for each thing, it'll be separating in a separate, like it'll be plotting in a separate color. So for Deccan Chargers, it's plotting in red color. For Sunrisers Hyderabad, it's plotting in green color, and for Chennai Super Kings, it's plotting in blue color. I just mentioned that the color is winner there, and the total number of title is the total number of matches won. So I need a title for my graph, and I gave a text for the season. So I just wanted to see my season here. You can do that even without that. So if it runs even without that, it's just so when you're showing data to someone, make sure that the person is having an easy time trying to understand. So having this text right there will help the person see, okay, this is this, this is this, and I can understand this. And for you, like for the person reading this, they can also understand that for some reason Deccan Chargers never played a match after 2012, and for some reason Sunrisers Hyderabad never played a match before 2013. So if you follow IPL, you know that this team was disbanded and this team was formed after this team was disbanded. So that's how it works. And your graphical representation is giving you a very clear picture of what that is. And Chennai has always been there. I think it missed one season after 2019, but yeah, like that data is not there, so it's not visible there. So yeah, that's it. That was for this talk. You can I'll be available now, but before you do those exercises, maybe you can leave a feedback here. Please do leave a feedback. It helps me a lot to create this workshop. I know I shot up more than like 45 minutes extra, but I think you had a good time. So maybe you can just do these pieces, and we can stay over the call. And if you have some problem, I'll discuss the solutions in some time. Okay, I'll discuss the solution for group by. Uh, so what you need to do here is group by, like it already tells you what you want to group by. So uh, I perform this group by operation, then I get the min and max. So what I'm asking you to use is this last one I discussed, that is aggregation operator. So I can just maybe just copy paste that here, and that should. So I asked max and min for all. So I wanted you. So what I wanted you to see here is that it's not necessary that max and min operators operate only on integers. When you see this, you're getting even strings, and that can happen because you can do a max and min operator on string. I think what it does just takes the sequential order, like C R is greater than C. It takes some information like that maybe. Not I'm not sure about that, but it does not drop them. So if that was what you were expecting, that you were only going to get win by runs and win by wickets, that was not what happened. And I wanted you to have a look at it, that even this can be an output. So when you're writing your group by queries, you need to be a little more cautious of what you're writing. So maybe this would have made more sense than what query you ran. So in that, after that, I just asked you to get the last 20 rows. So I wanted you to do a tail operator. Last 20. This was just for you to revise the whole thing again. So this is the last 20 rows. And going ahead, how many matches did each team win per year? So this one is a little complicated because there's not much information on what do you group by and what do you do. So if you go back, so for this, you would have to go back and look at your data frame again. First thing, it's talking about which team won. So which team won, you have a column called winner. So that's something you can obtain from your data frame. Per year, so what, from where you going to get this year? There are two places where you can get this year from. First one is the date, and second one is the season. Season is a more appropriate place where you can get it because that's already formatted for you. If you were going for date, it would be a little more complicated where you have to perform more operations to extract this 2010 from there. Let's go with season for now. So you know that you're getting like you need the winners and you need it per year. So what you do is you do a df dot group by. So the idea of this one was not like, the problem with this question was it's not hard, but it's hard to understand what you need to do. You need to translate this to the knowledge you got from this workshop to apply this. So how many matches did each team win? So like if I do a count, would have been giving you this output. It counts for each and everything. So count gives you the non-null values. So if you wanted how many matches did a team win, the ID is the best place to go because ID is never null. So you can just say dot ID and you got it. So if you remember, in the bottom when you were solving the last problem, I did something similar. Like I did a dot ID. I'm not sure why no one asked why I'm doing a dot ID there. That's because dot ID is never null, and that's where you can get your counts from. So that's how you solve that problem, and maybe do a reset index if you want data frame out of it instead of Pandas series with multi-level index. So, so you can go ahead and operate with that. Maybe rename this with the rename operator. And going back to data visualization, what was the question here? Okay, so this one was simple. Plot a histogram for your for cities. So all you had to do was just copy this piece of code, paste it here, and replace this by city. I think I already show. Okay, I did not show this, but This is what you get, and you can see that these cities have a very less number of matches played. So like that's interesting information. You can also notice that there's also Bangalore and Bengaluru. Both mean exactly the same place. So there's some problem with your data. So what you need to understand from this plot is that your data can sometimes be wrong. What ideally would have should have happened is Bangalore, whatever these 13 entries in Bengaluru are there, they should have been added to this. So it should have been this much. So do realize that when you're working with data, you will have problems with your data and you will need to fix them. The idea of this plot was to show you that Bangalore was such an entry where you needed some processing. And a graph is a very good place where you can pinpoint this. If it was a data frame, I do not think it would be so easy to pinpoint that Bangalore and Bengaluru both exist in the same place. And also you see that this is very less. Okay. Plot a histogram of win by runs and just compare it with how different it was from win by overs. So if you go back to win by overs, the explanation I gave you was 1 is the minimum and 10 is the maximum, and these two are rare cases, and something in between is more likely to occur. That's why they are more present. Let's see what happens when you do it for runs. When you do for runs, you see a completely different plot. So it's more likely that you win by 1 or 2 runs, because most of these matches or these exciting matches are close. So you win by 5 runs, 2 runs, 1 run, and most of the cases in the last ball. So things like that happen. So winning by 1 run, this is more common. Winning by a low margin is more common than winning with something like 146 runs. So that's why you see a completely different plot. What I wanted you to observe here was that the distribution or how the graph looks is different, and you should also be able to give out the reason of why this particular graph looks also. Yeah, so that actually completes this workshop. I got extended by an hour. You can please do fill up this form. Please do fill up this form for me.
Siddharth, there is one question. Maybe you can take a look.
Yes. Yeah. What's the question?
Yeah, just check in the questions. There is some query. You can check it out.
Group by columns. This is good. Check what that's doing. So that asked the query. So he's trying to group by runs, group by some column. Let's say we go by seasons, and you group by the same. Or you need to group by season. So what is the output for this? What are you trying to get? So this does work. So what you're doing essentially is you're adding up win by runs count. Okay, you're trying to fetch number of valid matches. Is that what you're trying to do? Hello. Maybe I'll unmute you. Yeah, you can turn on your microphone. Yeah. What is it
No,
you're trying to do?
actually, the same query in which you use ID, right? So for that, in order to remove it, what I did was I just used win by runs and win by wickets columns. I added them together and it gives me the total number of matches won. Exactly.
Oh,
Just
okay.
in order to remove that ID or the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So okay, one thing is missing here. There are some matches where no one it's a draw or no. Okay. You would just oh, fine. This would work. I'm sorry. This would work. Yeah. This one's good. Good. Okay. So please do fill the feedback form. Like it would be great. I know one feedback for myself that I overshot it by 1 hour. Besides that, if there's anything, please do tell in that feedback form. And let me just close off this presentation so that we can have an open talk. So this gratitude. So first, I usually put some gratitude slides or a gratitude part in and of whatever I make. So for this one, it was event management, which Arpit volunteered to help me out with the event management, asking questions and making sure like this event goes well. And I would also like to thank my mentors. So earlier when I started off with data science, I was very rusty. I only knew Python a bit, and like working with data is hard. So you might have figured out by this workshop if it's the first time you're looking at data. I had very good mentors. So these two people, Sagar Sonawane, he was my first mentor who introduced good practices in Python and also data science to me. After that, Karan, he's my manager at Arista. He's currently my mentor. He teaches me new things every day. What's the best practice and how do you do things? And they're the two people who have impacted a lot. Like they have taught me a lot on how to do things well, how to learn well, and how to work with data well. So I wanted to thank them. So, and also bigger thanks to for you guys for joining into this workshop. And I really hope you gain something to take away from this, if you were beginner, like professional or midway or trying to switch your career. So whatever it was, I hope that you like got something out of this, and thank you for joining. So I'll just keep it open for questions for some time, like in case someone has any questions, maybe we can just go through them. Yeah, if someone has any questions, you can just go. Maybe I'll stop the recording as well.